Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Monday morning. It is now the 13th day of January 2025, and this is the morning briefing. As I look out the window from the home weather office this morning, we have clear skies. It's a chilly morning, and it is going to be another quiet day, and it's going to be another dry week in Northern California. A couple of things I want to touch on this morning. One is the fires in Southern California, as well as the winds. And I also want to talk about PDS, particularly dangerous situation, that is going to be up for today and into the day on Wednesday in Southern California. I want to explain that a little bit because it's a relatively, and by relatively new term, I mean that it's been around for the last couple of years, but it hasn't been used yet in Northern California. But this is a chance for us to explain a little bit about what it is in case it is used in your area of Northern California, and actually I believe it's used throughout all of the western region. I'm going to start off with the satellite. Now this is going to be an interesting looking satellite because you look at this and say, well, there's nothing going on here. Well, on this satellite I actually have, this is the fire temperature, and what you're looking at here is the lack of red in here. So in other words, if there were ongoing hot spots, they would show up as red in here. And if you looked at any satellite photos from Southern California yesterday, there was very little smoke coming off the fires. We didn't see the big smoke plumes going off the coast. And again, this morning, you're not seeing any red pixels in here indicating high temperatures. So the fires, I'm not going to say the fires are out, but we're certainly not seeing the heat. And the firefighters over the last couple of days were able to make really good progress. However, we are expecting another round of some wind, and because of that, the forecast office, the National Weather Service office in Los Angeles has put this out. Particularly dangerous situation, red flag warnings. And let me show you first where this is. Let's see if I can move this over a little bit. No, it doesn't want me to move it over. Move it over this way. So you can see, let me widen this out a little bit for you. There we go. That works a little bit better. So as you can see, they have highlighted these areas in this pinkish color. I don't know exactly what color that is, but they've highlighted specific areas here for this particularly dangerous situation. And you notice where it is and where it isn't. So there's Pepperdine. This is the area where the Palisades fire was burning. It doesn't include that. Here's Pasadena over here, so it doesn't include that area. So what they're looking at here are areas where you could have winds. Now, let's look at some of the language that they have on here. A PDS from 4 a.m. Tuesday to noon on Wednesday. I'll show you some of the winds here in a minute. This is the important part. Peak winds for this next event will be weaker than those of last week. Weather winds of 45 to 70 with very low humidity. So what is this PDS and what does it mean? Well, think about red flag warnings, and all of this area is under a red flag warning for the next couple of days. But if you think about the red flag warnings that we often get in Northern California as well, think about this as being the next level up from that. So if and they had one of these PDSs up last week as well in Southern California, but there was a lot going on then, so it was kind of tough to get to this through the noise of the wind and the fires that were going on. But I wanted to point this out because we could see this situation develop in Northern California. And actually, if this had been around during the Camp Fire, we likely would have seen it used then. Or in the fire that went through Santa Rosa, we likely would have seen it then as well. So it is a case where it's not just a red flag warning for perhaps a fire could spread quickly if we get one started because of the low humidity and the high winds. No, this is something a little bit higher because the winds might also be perhaps damaging, as well as existing fires could spread very quickly into urban areas. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit because there will come a time, unfortunately, whether it's this year, next year, 5 years from now, that we'll hear about this in Northern California, a PDS. So I wanted to take this opportunity while we have one actually in existence in Southern California into the day Tuesday and Wednesday that we will be seeing this example used. So in case you ever hear about it in your area, you know what it is. So just think about if a red flag warning is here, a PDS is up here. It's just the higher level of trying to get out the message of risk that is out there because of what's going to be going on. All right, let's talk a little bit about the winds. And so I'm going to go to Southern California, and as you can see, this is the wind that we're expecting. I've got this this afternoon. We once again have offshore winds. Be nice if we get some onshore winds. Now, those winds aren't all that strong. Let's get into the day on Tuesday, because this is Tuesday morning, and as you can see, stronger offshore winds. They are a little bit farther north. They're more Ventura County than in LA County than what we were seeing. So the last case was not only a little bit more widespread, but also stronger. But it is going to be an offshore wind, again, especially impacting parts of Ventura County. And we get into very early Wednesday, we have the same thing, the offshore winds. So this is low humidity. And so if there are any hot spots in the existing fires, they could flare up. Or if there was a new fire start, it could also spread pretty quickly. So that's what you're going to be hearing about in terms of headlines for the winds over the next couple of days. You'll likely hear them say, here on national news and that sort of thing, that another round of winds. And yes, it is going to be windy in some localized areas, but not the same areas and not as strong. And the biggest fires that we saw, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, was it? Anyway, the one near Pasadena, those are much less extensive than what they were. And I think firefighters will continue to get a handle on those over the next 24 hours. Actually, Monday should be a pretty good day. All right, let's take a look at the big picture and show you what's happening here. Because this dry pattern for California does continue. And as you can see, this is the 6Z run. We have this little low off the coast, and there's the offshore flow. And this is the big ridge here, the big deep trough here. The other thing we'll be hearing about nationally is this cold pattern. We do have more cold air heading back east and more dry weather here. And it's going to be this low here, dropping down, that will carry another surge of cold air here. This should be getting into the day this is Saturday. So big ridge here, big trough in the east means cold air will once get pushed all the way down to the Gulf states that I'll show you in just a minute. And yeah, the overall pattern of a deep, deep trough in the eastern 2/3 of the country and a dry ridge in the west, that continues all the way through the weekend. And actually, we're going to go a while before we even see a chance of any rain. This model does eventually bring a cutoff low our way that may bring a chance of rain, but I'll believe it when I see it. So let's focus here on California and the West for a second. As you can see, nothing in the way of rain or snow. Let me just move this up a little bit. This is Friday. This is the weekend, so if you work outdoors, if you have things planned to do outdoors this weekend, it's fine. This is next week. This is Wednesday, Thursday of next week. This is all the way through to Friday of next week. So no rain, no snow. So for those of you working outdoors, not an issue. Traveling through the Sierra, not an issue. And then that week little cutoff, this is the weekend of the 26th with a chance of showers. But yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. So let's take a look at across the country, because that's going to be the bigger story they'll be hearing. And once again, I want to point out this purple line right here. And just think about that as being the boundary between warm air and cold air, if you will. So that's the 540 thickness line. And look at where it is this morning. And it actually doesn't move all that much. And actually, by the time we get to Friday, it goes all the way up into the Dakotas. So we get some warming in the south. And also notice how it's relatively dry across the country. Pretty benign weather pattern until we get the next surge of cold air. So watch as we go through the weekend, watch this 540 line just dive to the south. It's in the Dakotas. Now it's down into Oklahoma, and now it's down into Texas. By the time we get to Sunday, Yeah, now it's all the way down here into Louisiana. And notice how, once again, on that boundary, to the south of that boundary, that 540 thickness line, on the south side of it, you have rain. On the north side of it, you have snow. So we'll keep an eye on what that may do for areas on the East Coast by Sunday. But this is just the cold air we're going to be hearing about. Bitterly cold in the upper Great Lakes as well as into the East Coast, and cold air, relatively speaking, for areas in the South as well. That's getting all the way into Sunday and Monday, and it just sticks around. Look at the 540 thickness line all the way down into areas, well, that's all the way down into Mobile, Alabama. So yeah, so the potential for some very cold air back east as we go through the next 10 days or so. But relatively dry. And of course, dry here in the west as well. So as I mentioned, for California, all of California, we don't have any chances of rain for this work week, the weekend, or all of next week. So at least 10 days before we see anything in the way of rain. And as I've been mentioning last week, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this pattern stick around until the early or maybe middle part of February. We'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, we got to get back into our rain and snow. And boy, for Southern California, they do need to get the rain season going so that when we get offshore winds, they don't have the extreme fire danger that they'll have going on over the next couple of days. So that's everything I have for you on this very early, for me, Monday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.